Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be trying out this Beetles French tip gel kit. So I was just reading over the directions and looking at the warnings before I actually use them on clients. And when I opened the box I was really happy to see those tip guides, like they're helpful as hell. So we got 2 glitters and 3 different types of cover pinks for the French and 1 white. So later on in the video when we actually do the polishing, I'll be showing how they look and everything like that. So now getting into our acrylic application, I just want to say that everyone has a different type of way of doing things. So most people like to squish out the brush, get out all the bubbles. I like to just dip my brush in and keep wiping it on the side. That really seems to work for me. So there I am picking up the bead, and what you want to look for in a perfect bead is it to not drip off your brush, or that's too wet, and you definitely don't want it to be so hard that you can't mold it because that's too dry. So when I start on forms, which is all I use, I like to start where the tip and the natural nail meet, or well, that's for nail tips, but where the natural nail meets the form. That's where you want to start to make that base. So it's basically nail tips, but you're just making a natural base. So I like to really focus on the C curve, which is why in like most of my photos on my Instagram, it's always like a perfect C curve, because in my opinion, when something is just flat, it changes the whole look of the nail and the whole set, to be honest. So that's why I like to really focus on that and apex and different types of things, but that's always what you want to focus on when using nail tips, forms, any type of way of extension. So here you're gonna see that I made this bead a little bit too dry, considering when you have to use your body of your brush. So you need to use the body of your brush, but when you have to use it so hard that you're squishing it, then that's way too dry. And especially when you're around the cuticle, you want to make sure that you're having it not too wet but not too dry, like just enough to where you can place it and it can kind of flow down with gravity. I learned that that's like the best way to make it more flushed and able to, when you have to seal the cuticles with your drill bit, it'll be so much easier to just get around there and just get it done. So here you can easily see that I'm just trying and trying to see how I can get it back to normal, which you don't want to have to do. So whenever I accidentally make a mistake like that, I like to put a bead at the front, which was able to happen. Sometimes it's not, but I could put a bead at the front and just swipe it backwards to make it more even with the back, because if the back is big and the front is thin, it's like just doesn't look right. So here I am just kind of molding the front and the C curve to make sure that it's like looking okay down the barrel. And as you can see, that's why I keep kind of flicking the finger up, because I'm looking down the barrel, down that C curve, to make sure it doesn't look thick or thin. And now I'm just kind of keep on molding that C curve. And sometimes if you have too much acrylic, what I like with forms is that I can just take my brush. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but you can take your brush and kind of trickle it off with your tip of your brush and just kind of take off that excess acrylic. And in my personal preference, I love having that to just be able to, take off excess acrylic. Here I'm just kind of cleaning out my brush, still checking to see if there's any imperfections. You want to make sure that you're really taking your time. You don't want to rush, but sometimes you have to, but you still want to make sure it looks okay. So whenever I clean out my brush, I go back into my acrylic and I just keep wiping on the towel And I like to use kitchen towels because they're more abrasive and they really get that acrylic out of your brush. And I just use my finger and I kind of swipe down that brush and I really just squeeze out any leftover acrylic. And here you'll see that beautiful C curve. I love making a C curve, it's so much fun. And it kind of just focuses in, but that's how it's supposed to look when you have a C curve. You want to make it look like you didn't even need to use a form. You just want to make it all look perfect in my case. So I just keep on cleaning out my brush. Okay, so now that I checked to see if it was cured, the way that I check is it's actually just the normal way. You kind of tap it and you'll hear it. It's like a click. It's like a click clack. But that's like the best way to check. And since I'm going in with a tapered kind of square, like a coffin, but not a coffin, I try to use my file at a 90-degree angle just to make it more narrow down the middle. And whenever I use forms, it's actually when everyone use forms, you're gonna have to really file underneath to get back that C curve because once you take off that form, you'll see a lot of leftover acrylic got like stuck to it. So you're gonna have to file a lot underneath, and that's when I kind of use the coarse carbide bit just to get underneath there and make sure that it all looks more flushed and just C curved because you don't want that extra stuff underneath, especially on a client because it'll look really compacted underneath their nail. So you want to really work on getting that out. And here you'll see that's what I like to do is I go underneath there to make back that natural C curve and just kind of clean out underneath the nail. So after cleaning underneath the C curve and doing everything like that, I just kind of go around the cuticle to seal it in, and I'm using this coarse carbide bit from Sally's. It doesn't really have a link, you'll just kind of have to search it up on there. Um, and I use a safety bit because when you're using on your client, you really don't want to accidentally nick them or anything like that. So I also kind of go around and take off the bulk of the nail and just gotta make sure that you're cleaning under there. Just really gotta make sure because when dust gets under there, it gets all compacted and it looks like you got a bunch of stuff under the nail. And when they leave, you definitely don't want them to just look there and be like, why is that there? So you just gotta keep going around and checking and checking. It just takes a lot of time and you don't want to file too much, but in my opinion when you keep looking at it, it gets you see more things and you have to file more. So yeah. So now I'm just gonna kind of take my file and just contour, kind of just wiping my file across the nail, and it just takes out any divots from the coarse carbide bit. You definitely don't want to use that for everything because it leaves lines and streaks in the nail because of the shaving and things like that. So I just kind of use it to reshape, contour, and take out any of those divots. here I'm just going to kind of show where I shaped, filed, and that file kind of works as a buff. I actually got them from the dollar store, so you guys better go there because they have some good files. Like, some of their products aren't good, but the files are definitely good. So that basically worked as a buffer, and I'm still gonna go in. I figured I wouldn't waste a disposable buffer and file on just a practice hand, so I kind of just used an old one that I had. But you still want to go in and buff, especially when you're doing any type of polishing, nail art, because polish just picks all of that up. Gel or not, no gel, it just picks it up. So now once I'm done with filing and buffing, I'm going to take my alcohol with a cotton pad and I just kind of wipe over it. Now another thing is I got that pump bottle and cotton pads from the dollar store. Again, they have, sometimes when you really look into it, they have amazing products to use over your nails and other types of hobbies or anything. So once that's done, but personally, if you really want to make sure you don't get cotton stuck all in your nail, um, really try to invest in lint-free wipes. So now getting into the box, there's 3 cover pinks, as I said earlier in the video, 2 glitters, and a white. One of the pinks, in my opinion, are not cover. The really bubblegum pink, it's just, in my opinion, is not good for French tips. You want it to look more of a natural base. So now we're just gonna kind of look at the colors. I don't know why I keep saying we, because I'm like the only one here. It's kind of creepy. Um, but as I said before, the bubblegum pink we're definitely not going with. But the other 2 pinks are actually kind of cute. Like, they're really good for being a cover. Um, that's just what I like. And right here, that, like, that pink, it might be cute for like certain people with V-cut nails. That's kind of cute because they're not like traditional French tips. But that pink was just way too bright for being a French, like a natural French. I definitely don't like it. Everyone has a different preference, which I don't like it, but if my client likes it, I'll easily do it on them. But yeah. So now that we have our cover pink, we're going to be putting the cover pink over the entire acrylic nail. I really do like the feeling of it, even though it's like thick, but it's really helpful because when you have thick polish, it stays in place, but it also still gets into those like places that you need it to get into, like the sides. You can really go close to the cuticle without it running or flooding the cuticle. That's what I really do like out of a gel polish. And here you'll see I'm picking out cotton out of the nail, and it's just really annoying with stuff like that, which is why I really should have gotten lint-free wipes. I'll have to find them. I don't think they're at the dollar store, but there you'll see I go into the sides. I really like polish that can do that because, in my opinion, polish is like the complete part where you can like really feel the nails coming together, and that's what you really want to look for when you're polishing. You don't want it to be all lumpy and things like that, so that's why when you're filing, you really got to make sure that you're filing off those divots and lines from the coarse carbide bit. And here I'm about to cure, and when you go to cure, you want it to be 60 seconds, especially for the base. It says 90, but my lamp only uses 60. Like, that's all you really need, in my opinion. And there is a tacky layer, which is why I kind of wipe my finger on it. I really do like that white. It's very pigmented, so it's like you don't need multiple layers. And here I kind of had difficulty trying to open up those French tip guides, so I just kind of snip snip and finally got it open. So when you're going in, I don't know why I use tweezers because it was completely dumb. It doesn't really help. So just go in with your fingers, just try to pull it off. But when you are doing it, please be careful not to pull off multiple at once. Like, here I was at the very end, and I managed to pull off two at once. And if you're not looking to waste a bunch, just try to be careful. So yeah, there I pulled off two, and I only did one nail, so it was kind of useless. But if you're doing a whole hand, then yeah, it's fine. But I left the tacky layer on there to make sure I could get that thing to stick down and stay down, even though they are very sticky, so you don't really have to worry about that. But I just love the look of like an outline French tip and not a completely solid one. Like, I don't know what it is about me, but I just like so untraditional things. I don't know why. So now we're gonna go in with the white, and there is the outline. So you just want to really, even though there's an outline, you still want to be careful about accidentally moving polish throughout, like into the outline, into the guide, because that'll still make the smile line look a little ew, just gross. Because when they're uneven, that's why when you're more of like a semi intermediate, like not really a beginner anymore, it's easier to go in with a striping brush and just kind of curve around and um, touch up. That's it. I was trying to think of the word, but that's really helpful. And for this one, I'm curing it for 60 seconds again. I just cured it for everything is 60 seconds. I cure it before I take off the guide just to be safe, because if you accidentally hit it, and it's over from there. That's all I can say. So everything is apparently tacky. So you still want to go in with your alcohol afterwards, because it's all gonna be tacky. So here we go. I'm going with my dollar store pump bottle, and it does look a little bit crappy, but it works so good. It works just as well as the metal ones that you'll buy for like 40, not even 40, like $20. I don't want to get too carried away with the pricing. The funny thing is, I didn't even realize it, but I always use Beetles top coat because, in my opinion, it's really good. Um, but I just had the top coat there, and I was like, oh, even better. I'm not using a random top coat that you have to buy separately. I'm using the Beetles one. So whenever you're doing like a nail art design, you really, really want to make sure that you have a little bit more than that normally on your top coat brush, because you really want to make sure you get into any crevices or anything like that, so it not doesn't look all lumpy, because even with the top coat it still shows any types of lumps. And after I cured that for 60 seconds, here's how it looks. I i don't know, like, I like it, but I don't know. I just really do like it. At first, I was like not really feeling it, but now it like looks really good, and that guide really, really helped, and it just all around good. So I rate this a 10 out of 10.